There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future, there ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
This is Brother Melvin.
Greetings, and I am Sister Tasha, and this is Africa Must Unite podcast, and we are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.
Absolutely. So first of all, we want to thank all of our listeners for joining us for this entire year where we've been focusing on the African world and acknowledging that the African world is on fire. And like we do at this time, we want to share some dates in African history with you all for the month of December. So beginning on December 4th, we recognize that Mark Clark and Fred Hampton, Black Panther Party leaders, were assassinated by Chicago police in 1969. December 5th, Nelson Mandela, activist and first president of Azania, South Africa, died in 2013. On December 13th, let's go back to December 5th. That was also the first All-African People's Conference held in Accra, Ghana in 1958. That was for December 5th. Now, on December 13th, Ella Baker, political activist, was born in 1903. And interestingly enough, on December 13th, Ella Baker, she passed away, transitioned in 1986. On December 18th, Steve Biko, leader of the Black Conscious Movement in South Africa, was born in 1946. On December 19th, Carter G. Woodson, African historian and father of Negro History Week, and which becomes Black History Month, he was born in 1875. December 21st, Thomas Sankara, Pan-Africanist and president of Burkina Faso, was born in 1949. December 26th, we recognize the first day of Kwanzaa. It's also Mozambique proclaimed this day as Family Day in 1962. Jack Johnson becomes the first African-American heavyweight champion in the United States in 1908. And on December 31st, we recognize that Amy Jacques Garvey was born in 1895. So those are some of those critical dates in the month of December for you all to listen to. Now, Sister Tasha, we have been looking at our theme again for the whole year. The African world is on fire, and I hope that some of our incredible listeners out there have been following us as we talked about the entire African world and spaces where we know that we are experiencing hard time, oppression, and that we have to arrive at our conclusion, which you may have heard throughout our calendar. And we understand that our permanent solution for the conditions of Africans throughout the African world is Pan-Africanism. And so what we like to do at the end as a wrap-up is kind of like center that focus on why we talk about Pan-Africanism. So I want to share with our listeners just getting to that point, and hopefully you and I can share this piece about why we talk about Pan-Africanism. So looking at that, worldwide socialism will ultimately help cure the problems experienced by people around the world as a result of capitalism's negative impact. However, for African people, the quickest cure is Pan-Africanism, a unified socialist Africa. Instead of waiting years and years for institutions to be changed to guarantee fairness to all, no matter what their skin color, Pan-Africanism will give African people the much-needed jumpstart toward full equality and justice. In many locations of the world, African people make up only a small fraction of the population. For example, in the U.S., that fraction is 13.5%. Being such a small number of people living on someone else's land, African people in the USA can only come to the bargaining table as beggars, depending on the kindness and fairness of others. No people have ever managed to free themselves when their land has been controlled and exploited by another people. I think that deserves a second read. No people have ever managed to free themselves when their land has been controlled and exploited by another people. Fortunately, despite hundreds of years of exploitation, Africa is still the wealthiest land base on the face of the earth, the second largest continent in the world, and the second most populous. Power comes from the wealth that is produced by that land, for no people can achieve equality by begging for it. Wealth gives one the power to demand fair treatment, fair prices for goods and services, which all translate into respect. And finally, liberation. With a unified socialist Africa, African people will be able to stand on their own feet with their own wealth solidly behind them. African people will be able to demand justice as well as to trade on equal footing, and African people will have a new image, one of a powerful, beautiful people, wherever they happen to live in the world. Before China closed its doors and freed itself from Western imperialism, a popular saying existed throughout the West, particularly in the U.S. Quote, "You don't stand a Chinaman's chance in hell of doing something." The Chinese people's condition throughout the world was so lowly that they were called niggers. Today, Chinese are thought of as very intelligent people. It doesn't matter where she ever opens her mouth. When a Chinese person walks into a room, you don't even know whether he or she is a third generation Chinese who speaks only English or someone who has just come from China. It doesn't matter. The image of the Chinese has evolved along with the evolution of the land-based China. Sisters and brothers, at home and abroad, let us all stand up and be counted as a part of the African Revolution to defeat global capitalism and build Pan-Africanism. Join a revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization today. And we always say, forward ever, backwards
never. Yes, and Brother Melvin, I see that in the educational field all the time. You never ever know when someone opens their mouth what's going to come out. So, and also just that you said some very important things about that land, that wealth, that power, that respect and liberation. You're going to hear that as a theme throughout everything that we talk about today, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we think about, 5 frequently asked questions on, why? Why Pan-Africanism? Why are we saying go in the direction of Pan-Africanism? Well, we do know that Pan-Africanism is the liberation and unification of Africa under a socialist economic system. So, Brother Melvin, how can the quest for a united Africa help me as a person of African descent living in, so for example, like maybe Kingston, Jamaica, maybe Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, London, England, or even where we live in Milwaukee in the U.S.?
Yeah, liberated, unified socialist Africa is the only way an African living anywhere in the world can permanently be free of exploitation and oppression. And of course, the wealth of Africa belongs to all Africans, all people of African descent, no matter where they began, where they happen to be born or live in the world. And all that wealth from the land will be used for the education, health, and general welfare of all Africans. Malcolm X stated, quote, "Just because a cat has kittens in the oven, that doesn't make them biscuits," end quote. Queen Mother Moore stated, quote, "Well, if an African has offspring in America, what are they? They're still Africans. We're nothing more than overseas Africans. Our land-based Africa used for our health and welfare ensures our liberation." You already mentioned the formula: land equals wealth, wealth equals power, power equals respect, respect equals liberation.
Yes, yes. And I was born in America, but that doesn't make me an American, I'm still in Africa because my land base is Africa, which makes me an African, just as you. Is that right, Brother Melvin?
Absolutely right. 100%. When I talk about Pan-Africanism as a long-range goal when our people are struggling right now, right? That's another question. Why do we talk about Pan-African as such a protracted piece in terms of regaining the power over our own land and stuff? So we say we want a permanent solution, not a temporary one. We appreciate the organizations that are struggling to solve the current problems of our people. We need those organizations. However, our focus is on permanent liberation, and that can only come about through Pan-Africanism. Again, that formula is land equals wealth equals power equals respect, and that's what's going to bring us the liberation. So absolutely, we understand that there are people who are fighting for the conditions of the African and throughout the African world, but like we mentioned, we're looking for that more permanent long-term solution, which we understand as Pan-Africanism. But we also talk about socialism, Tasha. Like once we are we liberate our land, we have to put some type of economic structure in place. But we always talk about socialism. So why not just the unified African controlled by African people? Why do we talk about socialism?
Well, Brother Melvin, a lot of people are against socialism. But, when you think about why not a unified Africa controlled by the African people, I really believe that, people are afraid of Africans having so much power over their own land. So, we don't want to Africanize exploitation and oppression. We don't want to change the face of our exploiters and oppressors. We want the wealth of our own homeland to go to all Africans and not just the only 1% that's getting it right now. So only an economic system in which the people own and control, which is socialism, will ensure that Africa's wealth, all that Africa has, the benefits, the African people will actually benefit from their own land and their own wealth.
Absolutely. So I know when you talk about all those resources that are our homeland, we talk about homeland Africa, obviously, the coltan, the cobalt, all these pieces, everything that you need for cell phones, the rubber. We know that these multinational corporations are at home sucking up the resources and enriching themselves. Once we have control over our land and we obviously controlling the resources, again, we come to the bargaining table with power, and which we demand respect from that. But here's another question that we typically ask, Sister Tata. How can over 50 states or countries in Africa unite? Is this a utopian dream? Like Africa is a vast land base. Like we already said, it's the second largest continent in the world, and we talk about a unified socialist Africa. And people might ask that question: how do we unify? How do Morocco and Azania in South Africa unify? How do we connect Ethiopia to Ghana? So going from west to east or east to west and north to south, how do we connect our entire land base? Or why do we see that as an important endeavor?
Well, some people may think, Brother Melvin, that like it's a utopian dream that, can that really, really happen? But no, it's not a dream. Our people are dying here. We are in a life and death struggle. The struggle is for survival. And as our brother, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, wrote, the forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart. We have the same history, our contribution of humankind, the enslavement and colonization of our people, the same current reality, which is that exploitation and oppression, and thus the same goal, which is liberation. We will be forced to unite if we want to survive. That's the only way to survive.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, that is the only way. In order for the African, regardless of where we are throughout this world, it's important for us to free our land. Just like we talked about the China experience, once China closed its doors to Western imperialism and sort of restructured and reinstituted and changed the perception of the Chinese, they totally regarded different around the world today. And certainly we are able to do to that, if not greater, because we are the richest land base in the world. So, in getting back to this piece around Pan-Africanism, and like each and every one of us um, have some stake at this, and there's something for us to do. But what can we do to bring Pan-Africanism into existence? What is it that an individual right here in the city of Milwaukee, or if you're in Oakland, California, if you are in Rio de Janeiro, if you are in Haiti, and like all the places we talked about throughout the calendar year, um, what can we do to bring about Pan-Africanism? How do we bring that into existence?
Well, first and foremost, we always want and encourage people to just join a revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. And that's usually just to help politically educate our people, and thus to help us to unify around this goal. We need all of us to be on the same page. That saying about, you can do something alone, but you are so much powerful when everybody works together and unites. Just thinking about that monolithic unity around the fundamental questions of our identity, who we are, our enemy. You have to know who the enemy is. Just think about what your objective is. Of course, you need a strategy, and then your tactics. That political education leading to revolution is extremely important. So if you already belong to one of these organizations, that's amazing. If not, please encourage others and yourself. Please join another Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist organization so that we together can effectively politically educate our people, and thus that will bring quickly change to bring into existence a united socialist Africa. So we always want to say, don't just talk about it. Walk the walk, talk the talk. Show our people now the life that we're struggling and bring that into existence. How can we do that? We need to live according to our African principles, which is those three principles: humanism, treating people the way you want to be treated; collectivism, working together as a group for a common goal; and egalitarianism, giving everyone an equal chance to be a part of the organization, to equally be politically educated, and to equally be represented in this fight. So organization will help you do this.
Man, that was super powerful words, Tasha. We always say organize, organize, organize. So that's our focus, but not just being in any organization. Join the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist organization so that we could bring about our permanent solution, which we understand is Pan-Africanism. This is why we talk about Pan-Africanism. We are so happy and thankful that we've had our listeners join us throughout our 2022 year as we talked about, our African world being on fire and understanding that only a united socialist Africa can extinguish it, right? So, again, looking throughout the African world, we talked about different places and spaces where we are struggling, and arriving at this same conclusion, right, that we have to unite, we have to liberate our land, we have to be organized in order to do that. And living by those principles that you just talked about, Tasha, that's some of the first steps that we have to do: humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism. So we hope that you've enjoyed listening to us throughout this year, as we've enjoyed presenting our podcast each and every month for you all. And what do we have coming up for next year, Sister Tasha?
You know what, Brother Melvin? Before I go on into next year, we've been doing this for 5 years.
Oh my goodness, 5 years already.
Yes. Time flies when you're working for your people. That's what it is.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Join us next month. So next month is a whole new year. So we're going into our 6th year. Join us next month when we will discuss our new calendar for the upcoming 2023 year, focusing on global African youth caught in the snares of capitalism. I'm excited about that calendar. That calendar is going to be so informational.
Yeah, I'm excited about that calendar as well, Sister Tasha. And excited about what we plan to do with podcasting next year, and sort of increasing our viewership and listenership on the podcast for next year. But certainly being excited that we've been able to present to this collective audience throughout the African world. So
yeah. And I was going to say also, Brother Melvin, if you enjoy our podcast, listeners, please share our podcast with others so that we can form this organization of unity, so that they can hear some of these positive things that's going on, or just to hear some of the things that are going on in the world around us, so that we know how to organize and attack these issues.
meanwhile, we say visit our website, PanAfricanRevolutionarySocialistParty.org. Email us at PanAfricanRSP@gmail.com. Like us on SoundCloud.com. Visit us on YouTube. Leave comments on www.facebook.com/Pan-African Socialist. Remember, organization is the key. We have to repeat this statement again. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. A Union of African Socialist State is on the horizon.
Dunia be mbe Cairo kono, and then mbe Cairo kono mba make Cairo be bambanding, mbe Cairo duala and Cairo le sotoda. Gambia be, Dunia be, you know. The whole world we stand in peace, you know, and we go for peace, and then peace shall stand and peace shall last. Make it happen. We make it happen. We make it happen. Forever. We make it happen.
As I sit back and think of the people suffering overseas, it burns my eyes to see what people do for greed and how ignorant we actually are. If it doesn't affect us directly, then we don't give a fuck. So think about that, love. When you look upon your diamond rings, children in Africa are dying and some are losing limbs. I've heard people say diamonds are a girl's best friend, but Mother Africa says them bitches are just pretend. Indigenous tribes are being killed off in time, while this Western world is raping Africa blind. It's hard to find peace when you're raging inside, especially when you see your own people be brutalized. So take a look at the Egyptian statues. Why you think their noses are broke? Black people, that's you. Knowledge is power, and nothing on this earth is coincidental. But they don't ever want us realizing our potential. Yo, I'm for the freedom of my people. Africa, the motherland, deliver us from evil. No one came before you, that's why I adore you. Teach the kids about you, do anything for you. Garveyism, repatriate vision, Black Star, reparate, RBG coalition. Somalians fighting for survival on the shores, be labeled pirates by the underbeings laws. Selassie I fought with his back against the wall. Hotep, the father of medicine, the cure us all. You feed the whole planet and they can't stand it. Physically, mentally, religiously, they attack it. The Congo is always under warfare for material gain. The pain we feel is unfair. Wipe your tears, it's time to use your brain. It spares no fair, no gain if the pain ain't there. They don't know Hotep, all they know is about how to load that tech. Kid this, Mother Africa, best protect that neck. That house nigga shit round here gets no respect. I don't rap for peas, I would've sold that from a long time. I rap for the streets, in war just like mine. Broke pocket, but you still floss, you love shine. Real wealth is land and material bloodline. Nowadays they don't care about our history, and before slavery is still a mystery. But if you dig for dirt, you're gonna find it. Run your fingers through the earth and pick up some diamonds. Families are dying while companies are buying diamonds. Oils, arms dealers are supplying. Both sides they are fighting. Little kids with AKs, it's not a hype thing. Just open your eyes, kid.